Welcome to the Creative Penn podcast. I'm Joanna Penn, thriller author and creative entrepreneur, bringing you interviews, inspiration and information on writing craft and creative business. You can find the episode show notes, your free author blueprint and lots more at thecreativepenn.com, and that's Penn with a double N. And here's the show. Hello creatives, I'm Joanna Penn and this is episode number 876 of the podcast, and it is Tuesday the 4th of August 2026 as I record this. In today's show, I'm talking to non-fiction author Suzanne Smith about how she turned her expertise into a book and an online community and attracted a book deal from her success. We discuss how a free blog in a tight niche built the audience for the book, rewriting the book from scratch when the law changed, why speed to market made self-publishing the only option, building a paid membership based on demand, and negotiating a book deal with no agent. So that's coming up in the interview section. Been writing and publishing things over on the Nathan Barry Show podcast and YouTube channel. Nathan Barry discusses how to stand out as a writer in the age of AI, along with David Perell. Now, keep in mind who these guys are. They are non-fiction focused. They are entrepreneurs first, writers second. Although I see that Nathan has a book coming out in 2027 on the ladders of wealth about entrepreneurship. So that is their focus. Nathan is also the founder of kit.com, which I use for my email lists, and many of you probably do too. He was actually on this show in February 2018 talking about balancing craft and commerce. And David Perell has a podcast about writing, but he's more of a content creator than an author, I would say. But still, both are excellent in their way. But it's always good to look at who is saying what and what angle they are coming from. So a few things they discuss and that I thought were worth considering today. First of all, communication is rapidly becoming a commodity. So you can spin up an AI generated book or podcast or YouTube channel or video, whatever, on any topic very fast, or a social media channel or whatever. So producing doesn't make you stand out anymore. And remember, however fast you create, you cannot create as fast as the machine or people driving the machines. So whatever you want to create, make sure it's what you really want to put out into the world. And if you have something you want to share, have the courage to really share it. So I've talked about this before around why memoir is so difficult, but also so rewarding to write. And I've also said before that I think memoir is one of the non-fiction areas that AI would definitely struggle to move into because it's so personal. So my book Pilgrimage, for example, now AI could definitely generate a book on the topic of pilgrimage, but my take, my personal experience, my actual physical steps along paths in the real world, it's all in that book. And it was hard to share because I was scared to talk about some of it. There were some dark moments, the same as Writing the Shadow, which took a decade to write. And those two books are two of my bravest. I had something to say. It was hard to say it, but it was also important and rewarding to write. And I will also say those two books are not exactly my bestsellers. But that's not the point. I think that even if you write other things that might sell more copies, and I definitely have those too, having books that are focused on the courage of sharing your personal experience, I think is more and more important. They also say, consume uncorrelated inputs. Now, I absolutely agree with this, and it's part of the reason I love this is researching widely, and I read in so many genres and buy random non-fiction books, pulling ideas from other places that are not the usual places that you might hear about. Like me talking about this interview, in fact, you might not hear it discussed on other author podcasts as it's slightly tangential to the author podcast space. Now, David mentions using museum bookstores, which I absolutely love. Sadly, one of the best medical and anatomy and death culture bookstores in London was the Blackwell's in the Wellcome collection in Euston, but it closed in the pandemic. And although there is another bookstore there now and the Wellcome collection is well worth visiting, it is like a medical historical collection. They have a wonderful library as well. They have changed the focus of that bookstore. It has some anatomy style books, but not as much. And I spent so much money in there on all kinds of books, but also museum bookstores, religious bookstores. In fact, Tree of Life was inspired by a book I bought in a synagogue bookstore in Amsterdam. So we can find ideas to write about everywhere. And on the same topic, Nathan talks about borrowing typography ideas from clothing stores rather than trendy websites. And this kind of eclectic magpie mind enables you to find different things that spark different ideas for stories and fill the creative well in ways you didn't know you needed. Then I also liked the idea of training your taste deliberately and protecting your soul. And this is definitely, I talk about this in terms of curiosity, leaning into your curiosity. Pay attention to what you absolutely loved, what you hate, what you're just not interested in at all. And this sort of noticing what you're drawn to and ignoring the rest. And in fact, in Pilgrimage, there is a sort of anonymous quote, which I quote in turn, which is, "Pilgrim, pass by that which you do not love. Pilgrim, pass by that which you do not love." And I really like that because, in fact, if I go to a museum, I never get the audio guide. You know, they always have these audio guides now, and I'm like, no, if I listen to an audio guide, they will tell me what I should be interested in. And that is not what I want. I want to walk around somewhere, and if I see something that's interesting, I will go and then read about that particular thing. And I find this sort of leaning into what we are drawn to is so important, because AI can be all things to all people. It's a chameleon, and that's very useful for us because it can help us with so many things, but it cannot have specific taste as we do, because it is really a general intelligence, at least at the moment, of course. So anyway, lots more in that episode of the Nathan Barry Show with guest David Perel. David's podcast is How I Write, and he has lots of interesting guests over there too. And then also I wanted to talk about something that's on my mind right now that I thought might help some of you around asset management. Now, we're getting some work done on the house at the moment, and I also had non-urgent dental work last week. You might hear a bit of a lisp actually, because I've got a temporary crown in, waiting for the actual crown that is coming soon. Now, this was non-urgent dental work, but it might become urgent if I left it too much longer. And who knows, you know how when you have something, you're like, that niggly feeling when you think there's definitely something that's about to go wrong here. And it reminded me that we all need to maintain our assets, whether they are physical or intellectual property. Now, an asset is a resource that you own and control that is hopefully going to produce future benefit, hopefully something that puts money in your pocket. So you need to look after your assets. Assets do not hold their value as soon as they arrive in the world. You know, think about it. They say with a new car, for example, as soon as you drive it off the car lot, it's depreciating in value. Nothing holds its value. Entropy means that everything drifts towards decay and breakdown, and you have to put in energy and money, usually for maintenance. This is true for your house, your books, your body. Now, the environment also changes around the asset, and an asset's value is related to its context. An unmaintained asset depreciates and can stop earning for you altogether. So I sometimes feel like people consider a book and say, a book never goes off. Now, of course, you can find a book decades later or thousands of years later, people reading ancient philosophy. Yes, for sure, but that may apply to very, very few. But for the rest of us, we have to look at maintaining our asset. And in fact, one of the questions I asked Suzanne is, given her book is around property, what about when the law changes again? You know, you have to update non-fiction books because they go out of date. And so your backlist, let's talk about your books. Since a neglected asset may depreciate fast, you need to consider a maintenance schedule. And yes, for your physical health as well as your books. So your backlist is all the books you're currently not working on, not the latest book you released, everything else. So for most authors who've been writing a while, the backlist just keeps on growing, especially if you have multiple pen names and serve different audiences. But you can't just publish, set and forget, as the years tick by much faster than you think. An obvious task is metadata refresh. And I know that's really boring, but when was the last time you updated your sales descriptions, your categories, your keywords? They are free to update and they change over time. You can use tools like Publisher Rocket. Of course, Claude and ChatGPT do a great job with sales descriptions these days. Covers are another possibility, but of course that costs money. So have a look at other books in your genre. It may not be necessary to update a cover, but sometimes it can help, especially perhaps if you originally put out books a while ago when you weren't making so much money. So perhaps you didn't invest in a great cover, but now you can. So that is something to consider. Pricing is also worth looking at, especially print books if you publish on Ingram Spark and haven't updated your prices for a while. And also on Amazon KDP Print, as every year the costs of printing go up. And if you don't adjust your prices, your profit will get eaten away. Now, this mass update of prices on Ingram Spark was actually one of the first tasks I used Claude Code for, and it saved my wrist from RSI for sure. I updated over 100 records with all the different prices and changes. Also, back matter audits. I say this because I actually did some of this recently. Go back to, let's say, book 4 of a 10-book series. Do you need to update the rest of the series in the back of that book? A lot of us update book 1 because we're doing promotions on book 1, but what about other books in the series? There might also be dead links in those books. So, for example, I got a sale on PayHip the other day and I moved over to Shopify years ago. So I'm trying to work out where the hell that link is. I'm trying to change it. And then what about rights reversion? Every year that passes, it may be that some of your contracts might come up for renewal. Or maybe they're already well past and you just haven't done anything. You haven't thought about getting back to it. What about foreign translations, short stories, because they often have shorter amounts of time on contracts? What about books with traditional publishing? Or if you write freelance, check your contracts with some of the companies you've worked for. Is there any way you can republish that material after a time? I know travel writers, for example, who I wish would do a book that encapsulates a lot of what they write for newspapers and magazines. But of course, freelance writers often sign away their rights for a time or possibly forever. But it's definitely worth checking your contracts. Then there's a more expansive view. What more can you do with your assets? So I guess with a house, you'd be like, okay, so what else can we do to enhance the value? What new products could you create? It is August, so perhaps a plan for Halloween bundle or a Christmas bundle or something for the new year. I'm certainly starting to think about that in terms of bundles for my short story book. I might also do a bundle with my How to Write a Novel book. Or could you do a new book in an old series, or a free short story that leads into an old series, or a promotion that draws new readers into that series? What could you do to give your backlist the once over? That's something to think about. Then let's talk about you, the writer, the most important asset and the means of production, if we want to be all capitalist about it. So you need physical maintenance, regular exercise, strength building, sleep, all the things. And if you reframe this as making time to maintain the asset that helps you write, maybe this will help you look after yourself better. So people say, I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time for self-care. I just need to write. But of course, that lack of maintenance is going to come back to bite you at some point. Also, cognitive maintenance. I guess you need to upgrade your skills, whether that's writing a different kind of book or taking a class on a different genre or learning more about business or trying AI for some business or marketing tasks, because skills depreciate too. You need to keep renewing them. And also protecting your deep work time from the fragmentation that can be marketing and all the life things. So let's call that schedule maintenance or time maintenance. I don't like time management. I want you to think about asset maintenance today. I think partly because I worked in a factory. Well, I've worked in quite a lot of factories, actually. I've worked for some very big various companies doing manufacturing, and I didn't do the manufacturing, but the companies did. I generally worked in the accounts payable departments. But all of those companies, all of these sort of multi-billion-dollar companies, had an asset maintenance schedule, because in a factory, if a machine breaks down and production stops, that is a disaster. And in fact, if you let things go on too long, it can be much more expensive. Coming back to my tooth, I had a crown, I'm in the process of having a crown, which is expensive, yes, but certainly not as expensive as a potential root canal if I didn't get it fixed early. So think about it that way. What is my asset maintenance schedule for me? And factories have a planned downtime. They actually schedule downtime for things so that they can protect it, so they don't break and disrupt the schedule later. In the same way, like I was talking to someone about wildfires, having lived in Australia, and the idea of course, there are wildfires that get out of control, but the idea of controlled burning is so important. Scheduled burning in order to stop a greater disaster is what we're all going to have to do a lot more of. So, and then think about your car. I actually had a reminder today in my car that it needs an oil change in the next month. I'm like, thank you for telling me that, car. Now, we should have that for ourselves. And in fact, this is something you could use Claude or ChatGPT to do. You could say, okay, make me an asset maintenance schedule for me, myself, and also for my books. In fact, that's a great idea that I think I might actually do. And I'll probably do want to share it with my patrons or something. But I think that's actually a really good idea. We should have an asset maintenance schedule for our books and for ourselves. And this is where, if I was running it all myself now, I would just not do it. But because I have Claude doing so much for me, it could remind me to do this stuff. Even things like reminding us to book marketing stuff, get a free booksy on a book one, that kind of thing. I think making it easier for us to do this kind of maintenance is probably the key. Also, creative well maintenance. I just wanted to mention that. Sometimes if you are empty, it's because you are empty. And you need to fill the creative well, however you do that. And for me, it's travel and research and walking. And actually, because I'm working on my dissertation, I'm pretty empty for fiction. But today I had an idea. And when the ideas start coming again, I know my creative well is starting to fill up, which is good. So then, of course, just to finish this topic off around assets, we do have intangible assets. And those are things like trust and reputation, thinking long term. Don't compromise for short-term gain, being a good member of the community. This relates to your author brand and how readers think about you, how other people feel about you, the words they use about you and your work. Your friends, your relationships are intangible assets and need touch points. This is a reason to go to in-person conferences and events to renew relationships and deepen ones you already have, which matters so much in a long career. And relationships, of course, decay without contact. Now, this is not to say you're treating these relationships in any kind of exploitative way, but real friendships of any kind take time and take maintenance. Now, of course, this is all framed around the author business, but you have so much more in the rest of your life. So just a thought to consider today. Take a moment to consider the assets you have personally, professionally in your author life, and think about what you are doing to maintain those assets, look after them, and what you could do to reinvigorate things or look after them better. Let me know in the comments. In personal news, as I mentioned, I'm mainly writing my dissertation, which is very detailed work, but I'm getting there, just inching along. I mean, if I read 3 papers and then manage to write a paragraph, that's about the speed it's going along. I did have a moment the other day, actually, where I thought, this could be a PhD. I just think I should be involved and advance this area. It's about AI and death and authors. And then I backed away slowly because I want to get back to writing commercially again. But it was quite funny. I laughed at myself. But on that, I have finished the first round of edits on how to write, publish and market short stories. So I'll have that out in September or October, depending on how things go. And on book things, I have a Goodreads giveaway on Bones of the Deep. Only the Kindle version, August the 5th, which is today as this goes out, and to August the 20th. So I guess it's 2 weeks, August 5th to August 20th for Bones of the Deep. Now it is US only, sorry everyone else. If you want to sign up for that giveaway, link in the show notes, or just go to the Goodreads giveaway page. Now, this is an experiment based on what I talked about in the introduction last week. I haven't done a Goodreads giveaway for years, so I thought it was worth the, $120 to see if it was worth doing. So we'll see how it goes. Thanks for your emails and comments and photos this week. Thorn said on my episode about moving to Wednesdays, I enjoyed this one. It felt useful to ponder the ways my writing career and creative process has shifted over many decades. These days, my mantra of let it be easy. Let it be easy. That's a good one. Let it be easy helps with equanimity in both the writing and business parts of my career. I still learn from others. I don't try to map my career onto anyone else's. I do what I want, how I want to. That's great. Thanks, Thorn. Anne sent pictures from the Chapel of Bones in Faro in Portugal. Thank you, Anne. Carl sent pictures from Port Patrick Cemetery in the southwest of Scotland with overgrown graves and ruined arches. Very atmospheric, and also sent a What 3 Words link so I could find it on the map. If you haven't used What 3 Words, it's excellent. So you basically type in 3 words, or you can go to a place and get the 3 words, and it shows you wherever that is in the world. It's much easier than some other things. Kay sent a photo of St Aidan's Church in Bamber near Lindisfarne. I saw 2 great Memento Mori sculptures there with creepy skull with bat wings versions. Thanks for that, Kay. And Jessie said, listening to your new Wednesday episode while wallpapering my daughter's playhouse. Love from Sweden. Excellent. And Kitty, also in Sweden. I finished listening to your talk with Stephen James while I did 36 minutes of Japanese hit walking, which sounds cool, through the fields and the woods. Lovely photo there in Malmö, Sweden. And lots of comments, but I wanted to read just these other 2. Christina Larson on YouTube said, what an awesome episode with Stephen. It was such a relief to hear him say, I don't know what my brand is. You tell me what it is. As a new writer with only a few titles, it's nice to know there are different approaches. Thanks for bringing Stephen on the show. Excellent. And then at Gabriel's Grove Pottery on YouTube said, I wanted to reply to you asking if you've inspired anybody. When I started listening to the show back in 2019, I hadn't written a single book. Now in 2026, I have written over 60 books. Amazing. Become a full-time author, grown a 6-figure business with your advice. You've been here with me the entire time. So thank you. Wow, that's absolutely brilliant. Well done, you. And I'm really thrilled to have been useful on your author journey. Okay, please leave a comment on the podcast show notes at thecreativepenn.com or on the YouTube channel, or email me, send me pictures of where you're listening or your favourite cemetery or churchyard, joanna@thecreativepenn.com. I love to hear from you. It makes this more of a conversation. And just a reminder, because there seems to be another rash of spamming going around, my email is joanna@thecreativepenn.com. I will not email you from something else, unless you are a personal friend where you may get an email from a different address, but that is my business one. And so if you get a spam email asking for money from a fake Joanna Penn, that's not me. Today's show is sponsored by Publisher Rocket, which helps you with keyword and category research on Amazon, which you need for your metadata when self-publishing, as well as generating lists of keywords for your Amazon ads. This actually fits well with the asset maintenance idea around keywords and categories. This wasn't a planned ad with my intro today, just a happy coincidence. You can do this kind of research manually on Amazon, but it takes a lot more time and you have to think of all the different permutations to search for. But I found that Publisher Rocket saves me so much time and frustration that I use it for every book in every genre I publish. It makes the process easy, which, let's face it, which we all need so we can get back to writing. You can also use it to find keywords that readers actually type into Amazon search. You can learn about other authors' sales with the competitor analysis, which I use to find categories I want my book to appear in. And you can also use the reverse ASIN feature. So you can put in someone else's ASIN to see what categories and keywords other books are benefiting from. You can also find profitable keywords for Amazon ads and easily export them. You can search separately across Amazon stores for the US, UK, Germany, Italy, Canada, France, Australia and Spain, as well as for ebooks, audio or print, and in different languages now: English, German, French, Italian and Spanish. It is fantastic, and all of those different versions are all included in the one product. And if you buy it once, you get everything included as things are added. It is a one-time payment. You get 30 days money-back guarantee, and you can start your research now. There are handy tutorials, but it is pretty intuitive. Publisher Rocket is still one of my must-use tools as part of my publishing process. It has not been replaced, and it is very reasonably priced. So go check it out at publisherrocket.com. That's publisherrocket.com. This type of corporate sponsorship pays for the hosting, transcription and editing, but my time in creating the show is sponsored by my community at patreon.com/thecreativepenn. Thanks to the 7 new patrons who've joined this week, and thanks to everyone who's been supporting for months and years. If you join the community, you get access to articles, videos and audio covering writing craft, author business and AI tutorials. Last week I did live office hours and also shared the replay and explained how Claude has helped me clean my email list. One of those business jobs I have been putting off, and it was so good to get it done. The Patreon is a monthly subscription, the equivalent of buying me a black coffee a month or a couple of coffees if you're feeling generous. So if you get value from the show and you want more, come on over and join us at patreon.com/thecreativepenn. That's patreon.com/thecreativepenn. Right, let's get into the interview. Suzanne Smith is the founder of The Independent Landlord and the best-selling author of The Good Landlord Handbook. So welcome to the show, Suzanne.
Thank you.
Oh, there's so much to talk about today. But first up, tell us a bit more about you and your background and how you got into property and writing after a legal career.
Well, I've always loved reading books. In fact, I recently did a French literature degree as a mature student, but being an author was never in the game plan at all. It's not something that I even thought about. I was brought up in New Zealand, and so shout out to all the Kiwis and those across the pond in Australia. And the thing about, Jo, you've lived there yourself. Your Kiwis are independent, self-reliant, and have this great sense of fair play. And so that was very formative experience for me. And we moved back to England when I was 16, and then I have become thoroughly anglicised since then, but a Kiwi at heart. I always wanted to become a lawyer. And New Zealand, in some ways, on television is quite American. And there was this American program called The Paper Chase. And it was about all of these students at Harvard studying law. And the professor said, you come here with a skull full of mush and you leave thinking like a lawyer. And I thought, oh, I like the sound of that. I didn't really know what a lawyer was, but everyone seemed to be very happy that I wanted to become one. And then that was it.
So you went into law, and then how did you get into property?
So I worked for 25 years as a solicitor. That's like an attorney if you're American. Started off in a law firm, and then I went into pharmaceuticals, and I worked for big companies like what is now GSK, GlaxoSmithKline, and small companies as well. And when I started out, it was before the internet, before Google. Mm-hmm. And when you're in-house, you're very much a generalist, and you do a bit of everything. And so you help companies grow their business. So you're not business prevention, but you're still bound by the code of conduct for solicitors. And so you've got this role of keeping the company on the right side of the law. And then I had twins who were born about 5 years after I became a lawyer, and I decided to work part-time for a while and did an MBA when they were little, part-time through the Open University. And I know Jonathan is doing one at the moment. And
yes, it's finished. So that's exciting.
That was transformational for me because I had probably been thinking a bit too much as a lawyer, and it helped me to broaden my view of the world and understand all sorts of things. And so I continued going up the greasy pole. And then for my last job in 2015, I joined a biotech company in Cambridge, England, as general counsel and company secretary. And it was a long way from home, about 2-3 hours drive from home. So I decided to buy a flat, an apartment, and to stay there in the week. And I thought to myself, well, when I leave this company, I can let it out as a buy to let, but actually as a landlord. So I stayed there for 5 years. And then when I left, I let out the property. And the reason why I decided to leave law after 25 years, I had what I call a sliding doors moment, like in the film. I was 50. I was on holiday with my husband, and we'd probably had one too many rum cocktails. And he said to me, well, what do you want to be doing with your life? And what would you do if you could do anything? And I was thinking, well, I've done law. I want to do something else now. And I didn't really know what that was. And I'd always been thinking about studying French properly. And that's when I left. And so I decided 18 months later, I left to do a French degree at King's College London full time. I was the only old person there with lots of 18-year-olds. And so when I did that, I was able to cash in my share options because I was a good leaver. I retired. And so I started buying properties to let out and became a landlord without really thinking too much about it. And I used letting agents, and they were fine to begin with. But I didn't really have a game plan or anything like that. But what I realized is that when I tried to research things online, I couldn't really find anything that was terribly helpful. It was either quite general or it was very legal. And so after a while, and so I became a landlord in 2019, I had the idea, why don't I set up a blog? And this is August 2022, so just 4 years ago. And my husband came up with the idea of the name, The Independent Landlord, because it's that Kiwi spirit, being very independent. And I thought, right, I'm not going to charge anyone for it. It's a hobby. It's not a business. I'm going to pay forward and help use my legal training, practical legal approach, and practical common sense by doing this blog. And almost exactly 4 years ago, I sent my first newsletter and to 13 people.
Woohoo!
And I sent one last week to over 18,000. So it's been quite a journey.
Wow, this is so great. I love this. There's so much in there. The turning 50 and then doing a degree, obviously, my master's in death is a little different to your French literature, but I like it. So I love this. And buying properties, starting it on the side, not a business at first, and growing the audience. And obviously, you've put so much work in. And then you decide to write a book. So talk about that, because an online blog, although I'm sure your articles and everything was super useful, it's very different to write a blog than to a book. So talk about your challenges in writing, why you decided to do a book in the first place.
Again, I was an accidental landlord, is what they call it when you let a property when you didn't intend to buy it as a buy-to-let, which I did with my Cambridge flat. And I became, in many respects, an accidental author. So I was having a conversation with my husband again. And I was saying, I'd done this lead magnet to get people to sign up to my newsletter. And a big new law was going through Parliament at the time called the Renters Reform Bill that was going to completely transform the way landlords operate. And I was saying to my husband, I need to update my lead magnet, a little ebook, to explain the new law. And he looked at me and said, well, why don't you do a proper book? Write a book. And this was on the 29th of September, 2023. And the reason why I mentioned that is that I thought, wow, what a great idea. And my head was bursting. And I went onto Google, and guess what I downloaded on the 1st of October?
Yeah, my blueprint.
Exactly. I found you immediately, the author blueprint, and I downloaded it. I checked on the 1st of October, 2023. And so then I listened to I think I went back several years on your podcast, just trying to understand. I'm like that when I try and do something, I just try and learn everything that there is about it. And so I started writing the book, and I guess the first challenge, I write quickly, and I'm used to writing for people who aren't lawyers, being in-house. And so I thought I needed to have a structure. The structure was easy in many respects because bit of business at the end and then you can go through a tenancy. But I thought it was important to have a narrative thread and all the way through it, just to bring it together. This is the literature degree coming here. And I thought that the mission for everything I do, the reason why I started doing this is to help landlords, but also to help the experience of renting that people have in England. It's very specific for English law, and to help improve the private rented sector. And so that's why I originally set up my blog for free. And I wanted, when people went onto Google, they could find something sensible and very detailed from me. My blog posts were, well, I've now got over 400,000 words on my blog. So it's a substantial piece of work that is out there free of charge. And so what I decided to do is to bring this narrative thread, I call it the good landlord ethos, to the book. And then I wrote very quickly, and I had a pretty good draft by April 2024, because we were all thinking that the law was going to change very soon. But then there was an election, and in the end, the government changed and the legislation changed completely. So I had to rewrite the book and start again. So I think that my biggest challenge was that my subject matter, the new law, because I wanted to publish this book that explained to people practically what they have to do and make it really straightforward, keeping out of politics, and because it is a very politically charged area, and to write it so it's a manual, somebody could literally follow it. And so that was, and I used an editor, and I did write the book twice. I had a beta reader who is another lawyer and a landlord as well. And then I got to the get the damn thing done stage. The really tedious bit of all the typos at the end. And
the finishing energy to get it out there. And so at that point, obviously you'd found my blueprint. So you were learning about the indie way of doing things. Did you always decide to self-publish? And how did you think about publishing, and what were your challenges in publishing?
It never occurred to me not to self-publish, because the new law came into effect on 1st of May 2026. And the law and the details that I needed for the book were finalised in January. And I published on Amazon on the 5th of March. So I had to go so quickly. And even though I got a lot of it written, the last bit came in January. And so I needed speed. And I knew that for landlords to be able to have something that they can use straight away to help get them ready for it, and then use as a manual afterwards, I had to be first. And if I
waited, just on the year, was it 24? You said 26. You meant May
26.
24?
No, because I actually published it this year. Because what happened in 1924? Sorry, not 1924. In 2024, I had the first draft ready, but then I had to do another draft because the law changed when the Labour government came, and the Renters Reform Bill to Renters' Rights Bill. So I had to rewrite the book. So I finished my however many drafts in the end of January 2026, and it went to an editor, etc., and I managed to get the book ready for a proof, to get the proof printed towards the end of February. So it was really quick to go from the law being sufficiently finalised for me to write a book in January, and then having it ready in just over a month. And there is no way that I could have done that if I'd gone to a traditional publisher. And it didn't even occur to me to go, because I didn't want to be going touting around my book and please publish me, etc. It's just not me. I'm the independent landlord, and that moved very easily to being the independent publisher. So I learned how to do all the publishing, and a huge thanks. I joined your Patreon, and I was a very good student. I went through everything systematically and followed your playbook and used Vellum and BookFunnel and all the other tools. So I decided to go on Amazon as well as have my own Shopify store, which just about killed me.
Yeah, I was going to say you are an excellent student. You really like learning, but you also put this into practice, which is why I also wanted to talk to you, because you haven't just talked about all this, you've literally done everything.
And it was, sometimes it was like my head was going to burst. Luckily, Claude upped his game earlier this year. And when we got the Opus 4.5, because I didn't use AI really until this year. And I decided I need to do exercise all the time and have that as have to do it, because my head was spinning all the time with all these different things. And so I would go to the gym, go to a spin class, and then I would walk out with my phone and with the Claude app and dictate a stream of consciousness into it. Oh, I need to do this. Oh, what about that? Oh, I just remembered about this. Oh, I've had this idea, blah. And then say, make sense of it for me, Claude. And so it was very much as a thinking partner, because when you're writing your first book, it's bad enough. But when you're learning how to publish, and even like when I got the first proof of the book back from Book Vault, I realized that all the footnotes, I have 114 footnotes in my book. And that, again, is the recent degree there. And the formatting had gone skew with. And apparently it was an issue with Vellum, and they were really lovely and they sorted it straight out for me. So it shows always get a proof of the book. And they were able to sort that out very quickly. And Book Vault were very quick in getting me another proof, because you can shortcut it and just pay to get very quick, a very quick delivery. But Amazon, on the other hand, was really slow. It took a week. And so I actually published earlier on my Shopify store for my members of my membership, and I gave them a discount. And then I finally got it onto Amazon at the 5th of March. But there are all these different skills you're having to learn. And it was even the Shopify store I found very hard. And there was all the tax, because I'm VAT registered. And so I think I'm still recovering.
Still recover. I mean, I wouldn't normally recommend a Shopify store for someone with their first book doing first of everything. But as you say, you're someone who learns a lot, puts into practice. And I think you were pretty determined to do that, because you also had a community as well, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And the big subscriber list. And I think that's why the book did so well. So in the first week, because I met you at the Indie Author Lab put on by
London Book Fair. Yeah.
Yes, the Alliance of Independent Authors. I met you there, and it was just my first week, and I had 1,000 sales in the first week. And that was because of my audience. I'd been going on about I'm writing this book for 2.5 years, because that's how long it took me to do. And so I had a wait list for it, and I had a thing on my website, a landing page on my website, saying how good the book was and why it's the best thing for the Renters' Rights Act. And then I went on to Google, and I think I sent you a screenshot of this at the time, that I said, I put into Google, what's the best book for the Renters' Rights Act for landlords in England? And it came up with me as a featured snippet, and I hadn't even published it at that time. It was just about there. So the blog really helped because I become an authority on the Renters' Rights Act. And even though I'm not a practicing solicitor anymore, but I spend all my time reading the damn thing, and it is a very complicated bit of legislation. But funnily enough, I have ruffled a lot of feathers. And people have even said to me, said about me behind my back, what does she know? She's only got 4 properties. But I just took no notice. I thought, I'm going to try and use my legal brain and my understanding of what it's like being a landlord there with the rubber gloves, cleaning an oven when people have moved out, and try and write something that's not trying to sell anything else, and to help people. And then it got picked up.
Yes. So let's just slow down, because we'll get on to that in a minute. But let's just come back to that launch. So as we talked about, you've had a blog for 5 years.
Oh, it was 3.5 by then.
3.5 years you've been blogging, but hundreds of thousands of words of useful information. So you've essentially done content marketing. You've attracted people. You had a lead magnet. You got them on your email list. You told them that you were writing a book. You got a sort of pre-sales list up. So that's an email list. You've got a blog. Did you do anything else in terms of marketing?
I had YouTube. a big YouTube channel, and I'd only set it up at the end of 2024, and I'd had 500,000 views. And again, just very straightforward advice, and without all the scaremongering and politics. I deliberately keep out of it all. And a lot of people joined my newsletter as a result of that. And also a year ago, exactly today, I was running a Facebook group, which was a lot of hard work. There are a few thousand people in it, but there are often a lot of people going in there trying to sell things, insurance, eviction specialists and things. And there was also a lot of people just being unpleasant to other people. I was getting fed up with it. It was taking me a lot of time. And I was doing a lot of speaking events and trying to explain what this new law was doing and wearing myself out. I'm an extrovert, but even I find speaking events absolutely exhausting, because it's like everything gets sucked out of you. It's strange. And somebody came up to me in July last year and said, "Suzanne, can you set up a membership?" And I said, "Well, landlords aren't going to pay for that." And they said, "Yes, they will. You build it and they will come." And I asked ChatGPT and thought about it. And I asked ChatGPT, who I was dating at the time, now exclusively with Claude, but I know Claude has other people in his life, but I'm very much set with Claude Fable at the moment. So I asked ChatGPT, how can I go about setting up a membership? And I mentioned your one and said, should I do it on Patreon? And then he came back with Go for Circle. So I set up a membership on Circle exactly a year ago. In fact, it's the anniversary of my first member yesterday. And what the rules I had were no selling. So I don't sell, no affiliate links, no one else can sell anything. And we have to be supportive, no negativity, no politics. And so what it's become is like the senior common room of the private rented sector, with landlords, lawyers, letting agents. And there's a fantastic forum in there. It's not me doing it, it's peer-to-peer. I have twice monthly live streams where people can ask me questions. I wonder where I got that from. No, very much modeled it on your Patreon, but on a different platform. And I have courses in there as well. And so that has really grown. And that, I launched it in July, and by September, October, I'd gone past the VAT threshold, which has complicated everything. But it means my business now is this membership. And I really enjoy doing it. And there hasn't been all the negativity that you have in a Facebook group. So I had them, as talk about your 1,000 fans. There were about 1,500 in the membership. And their support really helped the launch of my book, as well as the wider people who get my free newsletter. So it's all different types of content marketing.
Yeah, but I do love this. And of course, people are wondering, so I joined Patreon back in 2014. I think it might have even been before that. And there weren't too many places back then to run communities. And it wasn't even really a community at the time. It was a sort of almost to give me a bit of support for the podcast. And so things have changed a lot in terms of communities. And obviously you went with Circle, which is great. Patreon is slightly different now. And some people are using Substack for something similar. But so that's just on the platform. But on the business, so early on in our conversation, you said I wasn't going to have a business. It wasn't a business. It was just putting stuff out there, helping other people. And then your audience asked for this membership. And so now it is a business, right? Yes, and you've got a book and all of this. So is that, are you happy with the change to a business? Because obviously you have to treat it quite differently.
Yes, I am, because I think to begin with, I was just doing it one or 2 days a week. And it was something, I was actually studying a master's in French literature part-time. And I then found that I was enjoying the blog more than the master's. So I dumped the master's after the first year, but after getting 88% for one of my dissertations, which interestingly was on the translation of a Simone de Beauvoir book into English. And the publisher who's got that now is Random House, but that's another thing. But anyway, so I decided to give up my master's and double down and work full time on the blog. and people were paying to help me with all the big fees and things, the big tech stack, buy me coffee. I was doing a little bit of consulting and things, but I was working 6-7 days a week, and I was treating it like a business in terms of quality and my effort, but not, it wasn't in a business in terms of revenue. And then it just all came together, and this person said, set up a membership. And I thought, that's what I'm going to do. I'm now going to put it on a business setting. I've got an MBA. I know how to do it. And people thought I planned it, but I didn't. It just happened. And so now I do very much treat it as a business, but I don't advertise. I don't allow people to advertise with me because I want to be independent. Recommend something, I want people to believe it's me recommending it, not just because someone's paying me, which can be a big issue within the landlord area. So
in any industry, I get pitched every day with loads of random things that people are like, oh, $1 a click or whatever if you send this to your list. And it's like, seriously?
Yeah.
Just stop it already. But I did just want to add there. So somebody asked you, they said you should have a community, and that sparked that idea. And I just wanted to acknowledge that my Patreon came from Jim Cookrell. Some of you will remember, who've been around a long time. Jim Cookrell came on my blog around sort of 2013. Amanda Palmer had just put out a book called The Art of Asking, and I was doing a lot of unpaid work on the podcast at the time, and I was either going to give it up or I had to fund it somehow. And Jim said, you should do a Patreon. And I was like, oh no, I hate asking for money. And so at the time I just felt, oh, weird. And then I was like, no, I do all this work, as you were saying. And now the Patreon has changed so much in terms of what it is, but it is the backbone of my business too. So I love that you listened to one of your fans who said what they wanted, and I love that I've listened as well. And so sometimes we just have to listen to those urges, don't we, to take things on.
Yeah, absolutely. And in some ways I didn't really back myself before. I thought, no one's going to pay for this. And then the more you give, and then the more they want.
Yes.
And what I've been really working on now is having boundaries, because there were two big kind of mottos that I picked up when I was working in pharmaceuticals. One was from a head of the business who was Canadian, and he was always saying, you got to skate to where the puck is heading. And
that's the Wayne Gretzky, is it?
Exactly. Yeah. He would always say it. And so that's what I've done with my blog and my book, is when I write things, I don't pay for any tools. I don't do keyword searches and all that. I just think I do one blog post per topic, and I'm going to guess what people are going to be searching for soon. And I build up all this content around it. And that's why most of my blog pages are top 5. And I've had no advertising. I know I haven't asked for any backlinks. I don't do it. People backlink to it because it's useful. And so that was the first thing, is skate to where the puck is heading. And that was my approach with the book. I knew people would need this book from around May, and they'll need it forever, because it is so complicated and regulated, the rules for being a landlord in England. So that was the first one. The second thing was, when you take something on, you got to let something go, one in, one out. And I found that I was taking on so many different things, and I've just been cutting back, because I can't be doing all the speaking. I can't be answering people's emails. So I don't do emails. If people want my advice on something, they ask me in the hub at the twice monthly live streams. Sometimes I answer in the forums, but I don't have time when there are 2.4 million landlords in the UK. And even with like 18,000 on my newsletter, I could spend, and I used to spend all my time replying to emails. And so anyway, so they're the things. Oh, and there was a third one, which is attract, don't chase. As one of my friends gave me that advice, and that's exactly what my approach has been. I just don't chase for anything. I just put the stuff there and then build it, and they will come.
Yeah, and I think another thing is the power of the niche. It's clear that what you write about, the people you are aiming at, like you have an extremely kind of tight target market, and that is both a strength and obviously a weakness because they're the only people. But as you say, there's more than enough of those people for a community for the book you have. And from my own perspective, that's the same for me, the power of the niche. That's how I have a successful podcast, for example, but because of that reason. And this is why I think you're like a poster child of what a non-fiction author should do. And you went about it. But what I like is that you didn't go, oh, where's a niche where I could make money and then jump in. You've gone about this in a kind of slightly accidental way, but now you're leaning in and this uses all your skills. So this really is a great example of the power of the niche and then making the most of it. But let's move on to what then happened and what happened with the book deal.
Wow. So you and I met each other on whatever day that was in March at the Indie Author Lab. And the following day, I got an email via my website on a contact form from Penguin Random House saying, we love the book. We love the mission, its values, all this kind of thing. And I was thinking, oh, yeah.
Must be an AI spam bot, right?
Yeah. And I remember I sent you a screenshot of it. And then I checked her out on LinkedIn and thought, okay, there is somebody with that name there. And you're always saying, and Orna Ross and everyone are always saying, watch out for scams. And in fact, Penguin Random House, even this weekend on Instagram, put out something saying there are lots of people impersonating us. So I didn't take it too seriously. And it was something like, oh, would you be interested in us publishing your book? And I thought, and I kind of laughed. It was like, no, this is too good to be true. So I replied and said, well, thank you so much. The Renters' Rights Act comes, and so this is like the second week in March. The Renters' Rights Act comes into effect on the 1st of May. If you want to publish it, you're going to need to get your skates on. And I literally did say that. And then she arranged a meeting with me the next day on the Friday. And I still was very dubious about it. And I had to think about it. But what helped me, and I have the little booklet here, at the Indie Author Lab, we did some work at the beginning. And Orna said, put your phones away. And it was like, what? Put my phone away. And then we had to do this definition of success and our passion and our mission and our purpose. And I wrote down things like, I want to help landlords and in so doing help improve the private rented sector. I get pleasure from helping people and I want to improve standards and use my legal and practical skills, etc. And so I thought, okay, what is my purpose of doing this book? It isn't really to make money because going with Penguin, you wouldn't do that for financial reasons because you'd make very little money. And so I thought, what is my why? My why is I want as many people to read this book as possible. And I've managed to sell a few thousand copies, but there are 2.4 million landlords and they all need to understand this book. And the only way that I can get it out there, apart from doing ads, is to get it out in bookstores. And so I thought about it and then said, yes, I will do it. And I will, because I want to get the book out there. So it's distribution and is going to be published on the 6th of August, which is really quick, bearing in mind they contacted me in the middle of March. And it's exactly the same book. It's just got different copyright wording and different blurb, different paper. Same cover. I managed to find a fantastic cover person to do it. And so they've kept everything the same. And so we negotiated that book. I have no agent. They came to me at the Attract, Don't Chase. And I just put my lawyer hat on. And because one license is very much like another one. And I did turn down their first offer. And
well done. And good negotiation.
My daughter said to me, who's an adult daughter, she said, but it's Penguin. And I said, well, no, but it doesn't work for me. And so I had a call with them. And then they came up with something that worked for me a bit more. And I did have to concede on a few things, like I can't sell it in my Shopify store. But in some ways, that was a blessing in disguise because it means I don't get any more "where's my book" emails.
Yes, exactly. Pros and cons of everything, basically.
And I have very clear rights to get it back if I want it back. I can get it back and I don't have to give a reason. But they're lovely. They have been really very wonderful. And when I went up there a month or so ago, they gave me this book. Sorry, they gave me this book bag, and it's got on it, "I'm published by Penguin." And I burst into tears.
Oh, that's
Because
nice.
I don't know, it just seemed like such a big deal, because up until then I was just being all very lawyerly and task orientated. And then I thought, oh my goodness. And it dawned on me. And so I'm now in this interim period where I've taken it down off Amazon and off my Shopify store. And I feel very maternalistic towards the book, because, it took me 2.5 years, which is longer than a pregnancy. And obviously it's not a child, but it's like my book child. And I've sent it off with a backpack and a drink and some snacks. And I hope that they look after him, my book. And when I the day I took it off Amazon, it was still #1 on. And a big shout out to Publisher Rocket, by the way.
Yes, very useful for niche publishing.
It helped me choose the right niche categories. And so it was #1 on at least one category, often 6, all the way through. And I thought, well, it's over to them now. But they're very lovely people. They've given me some marketing assets, as they call it, some swanky graphics and things to use. And we'll have to see what we do in terms of marketing. I don't mind doing marketing. I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit, and my whole blog is a marketing. And what I've been doing is updating my blog to include one of these graphics and to mention the book. And I got Claude to help me draft the code so it looked right. And so I've been going through all of my blog posts and sending people to Amazon rather than to my Shopify store. But it is mixed feelings, because I care about my book. I put a lot of effort, a lot of love, a lot of tears. No, not tears, but I put a lot of effort into it. And and it's out my control now.
Yeah, you said it's over to them, but obviously you will still be creating content around this topic. So you'll probably still be the biggest driver of book sales.
Yeah.
Are they also suggesting, for example, a podcast tour, like pitching for podcasts? Are they going to assign you some PR? Because also, if people don't know, as we're recording this, we have a new prime minister who wants to do various things. And so and you said no politics, but this is obviously a political thing. So you have the potential to go on a lot of different podcasts, media, talking about this, becoming almost a talking head in this kind of area. So are you angling for all that, and is that in your contract, or is it literally just going to be whatever you want to do?
That's not in the contract. What's in the contract is very minimal. I think I've already done what I'm supposed to do. But they are pitching for me to go on podcasts and things. I'll tell you a really funny coincidence. So we now have a new Prime Minister, Andy Burnham. And when he was Mayor of Greater Manchester, he set up something called the Good Landlord Charter. And I actually talk about it in the book, and I quote him in my book saying that good landlords mean people trying to do the right thing or something like that. And I coincidentally came up with the same name, the Good Landlord Handbook. I'd already had the book title for a long time. And so this idea of good and landlord coming together, the adjective good as opposed to criminal or rogue, and the cover being green, I'm wanting to change the narrative so it's the norm to have a good landlord, and to help people become good landlords, or if they're good landlords, help them to understand the new rules, because the new rules are very complicated. And so what I don't get involved in is this all right or wrong? Is it right that landlords can't do this or have to do this? Because as an in-house lawyer, it doesn't really matter what I think about the law or GDPR. Goodness me.
Oh dear, let's not start on GDPR.
No, exactly. Because we've just got to suck it up. Either you, and I liken it to the grief cycle, that people have been going through so much change, and you have the anger, the depression,
denial,
bargaining, the denial, and then you get to acceptance. And for some people, the acceptance means they want to stop doing it. If you want to accept it and stay, you need to understand the rules. And so I've deliberately just kept very practical and have kept out of all the politics of it. So, but I have, funnily enough, become involved because I'm now seen as an expert on the Renters' Rights Act. I've worked behind the scenes with the government to help and give comment on government guidance for landlords. And I was even invited to a reception to mark the passing of the Renters' Rights Act at Downing Street with the previous Prime Minister, and all while staying apolitical. I won't let anyone make me be a mouthpiece for their political view. It's more, we just have to do this if we want to continue doing it. And so that's that I've been very clear on that.
It's interesting, you mentioned the grief cycle there, and you've also mentioned Claude and ChatGPT. And I wonder if you might also just comment on use of AI for authors and for marketing and all this, and also with legal stuff, because for me now, if I'm looking at a particular legal thing, I tend to ask Claude, I'm like, can you just explain this or upload a contract or whatever? And although it is not legal advice, it can be quite useful. So give us your thoughts on using AI as a sort of sidekick in your author business and also for wider life.
I now struggle to think what life would be like without Claude. And I don't use Claude to write at all because I have a very particular voice and a turn of phrase, and if ever Claude writes something for me, it doesn't sound like me. It flattens me and it makes me sound a bit American. So I don't do that. But I've used it in the back end of the business. For instance, my blog was down and there was something called a recursive bot, which I don't even know what it was. And Claude helped me fix it for free. I went through, I did screenshots I did an 11 Labs audiobook and did it all myself, and was literally for every screenshot I was showing it to Claude. Claude said, do this, press that. And so I have all these different projects set up. One is the control room, where it's for my strategic thinking. If I have an idea, I want to think about something, I put it in there. I have the engine room, which is for everything techie to do with, like when I had the recursive bot, or if I'm wanting to have some code on the website to make it look a particular way. And then I have another things for different subjects, and I put all the resources in there. I use it a lot as a thinking partner. I've noticed that Fable doesn't hallucinate as much, but the Opus used to. And it would, if I asked it to proofread, it would say there's something called rental discrimination. And it was proofreading and said, no, it's not rental discrimination, it's rental income discrimination. And that was just a load of rubbish. And so I would never let it go and change things without me looking at it. But I went on one of your webinars a month or so ago about MCPs and all the connectors, which is fantastic. It can go into my community and pull out all the questions for one of my live streams and put it into a document in order by theme, for instance. And it can look at my MailerLite, because that's where my newsletter is with, and analyze the different open rates and click rates and things. Or in that, it's so good for analyzing everything, all the book sales. It helped me with my negotiation with Penguin, and it is pretty good on law. It has sometimes hallucinated things, but not so much now. But I think with anything is you've always got to go back to the primary source. And this is what we learn in academia, is you have to check the primary source yourself. And still I have a bit of a magpie brain. I'm very much a discovery writer like you, and things occur to me as I'm doing it. And I think that Claude, at the moment, it is incredible. And I've been quite open about it on social media that I have Claude as a business partner. And I'm a solopreneur, or whatever the word is. I have quite a big business now. It's different things, and it's just me doing it, because I can ask Claude how to do this and how to do that, and Claude can go and check my emails and tell me is there somebody I've not replied to, which helps a lot.
Yeah, I think it's empowering, I think, as a solopreneur as such. And you talk there about the fixing the tech stuff. I had my web host come to me and say, look, you're getting so much traffic and bot stuff, and we need to put this thing, and it's going to be $120 extra a month. And I was like, can you just give me an hour? I'll get back to you. And then I had Claude Code up and I was like, analyze this and tell me what we can do. And it was like, no, you just need to flip this switch and do that. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. And then the guy said, oh no, okay, actually you don't need it. And I was like, it's just stuff like that. People, as a solopreneur, you're either going to pay somebody technically quite a lot of money, or you can get Claude or ChatGPT. And we should say the ChatGPT Soul is very good, like the Claude Fable, for example. So yeah, using it as a sidekick. I love your control room and your engine room projects as well. That's a great way of doing it.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be without it now. And I would have published the book a lot later without Claude, because Claude was helping me with the Shopify store and all the many steps of things. And it saved me real time. And it is just fantastic. And I think right now when I'm updating my blog, I have a connection between Claude and my blog. Claude can go in. I can give it my Google Search Console results for the page. What should I change? Are the headings right? All this kind of thing, and it will give me a view on every single page, which is incredible. And
yeah. And YouTube and just everything, just super useful for that business sidekick. And that's what I want authors to think. I feel like authors get so obsessed with the creative side with AI, whereas actually people like you and me, we're using it as that engine room for the solo business, which is what I love. So we're out of time. I did want to ask one more thing, which is one of the biggest issues with a specific book like yours is when they change the law again. So do you have a plan in place for if, say, a new government changes the law again? Will you just be updating the book over time?
I think that there will need to be a new edition of the book in 3 years' time. And I've spoken to Penguin about it. And because not all of this new law has been implemented and there's going to be case law and things. So I expect that I will update the book every few years. And I have some other ideas for books as well. But for the moment, I'm just taking a bit of a break. I always say we've got to refill our creative well. I really feel like that at the moment. And recently, I've just got myself a personal mobile phone so that I can turn off my work one when I'm on holiday and actually take time off, because for all the time that I was doing the book, basically from Christmas until May, I didn't have one day off. And that is not good. So I'm just trying to be a bit more balanced. And I had an idea to write another book this summer, but I've just decided not to. And I'm going to leave it until I feel the urge again, which will come.
Yeah, but it's done.
Yeah, but I think there's nothing wrong with that. We just need to think what's right for us. I'm 58, so I want to be able to have time to enjoy things and not be working all the time.
Yeah. No, that's great. It's a sustainable business. So where can people find you and the book and your community online?
The easiest way to find me is theindependentlandlord.com. Or if you put Suzanne Smith and landlord into Google, you'll find me as well. And there's a link on there to the book, the Good Landlord Handbook, and the community. There's a link to that on my website as well.
Brilliant. Well, thanks so much for your time, Suzanne. That was great.
Thank you.
So I hope you found the interview with Suzanne interesting and inspiring so that you can turn your expertise into a business and still get a book deal on your own terms if you focus on serving a specific niche. So let me know what resonated with you. Please leave a comment on the podcast show notes at thecreativepenn.com or on the YouTube channel, or email me, joanna@thecreativepenn.com. Also, please send me pictures of where you're listening or your favourite cemetery or churchyard. And of course, I'd love to know what assets you are now maintaining. So next week, I'm talking to long-term publishing expert John Bond about his book, Going Indie. We talk about publishing innovation over time and, of course, the challenges of book marketing. So happy writing, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you found it helpful. You can find the backlist episodes and show notes at thecreativepenn.com/podcast. And you can get your free author blueprint at thecreativepenn.com/blueprint. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on Facebook and X at The Creative Penn, or on Instagram and Facebook at JFPennAuthor. Happy writing, and I'll see you next time.